Chapter 8. Joe meets Apollyon. Joe and Laurie went skating on the ice on the river. Amy heard them and wanted to go too. Joe promised to take me next time she skated, she said to Mag. I'm not surprised she's gone without you, said Mag. You were a very bad girl, and she hasn't forgotten the loss of her book. But she might now. If you try her at the right moment, go after Joe and Laurie now. I'm sure you can be friends again. I'll try, said Amy. She took her skates and ran after Joe and Laurie. It was not very far to the river, but Joe and Laurie had their skates on before she reached them. Joe saw her coming and turned away. Laurie didn't see her. He was carefully skating along the side of the river. He wanted to make sure the ice was strong and safe. I'll go on the first bend and see if it's all right before we begin to race, he said, and he skated on in front. Amy now had her skates on. Jo knew she was behind them, but she didn't turn round. She was still feeling very angry with Amy. Laurie turned back and called to Jo, "Stay near the side of the river, it isn't safe in the middle." Jo heard him, but Amy didn't. Jo took a quick look backwards. She saw Amy beginning to skate. The great enemy, her anger, said in her ear, "It doesn't matter if Amy heard or not, let her take care of herself." Laurie disappeared round the bend in the river. Amy, far behind Jo, was moving towards the middle of the river. Jo knew this. For a minute she stood still with a strange feeling in her heart. She decided to go on, and then something held her and turned around her, and she suddenly saw Amy throw up her hands and go down into the icy water. There was a cry which made Jo's heart stand still with fear. She tried to call Laurie, but her voice didn't make a sound. For a moment she stood quite still. Her eyes were fixed on the little blue coat above the black water. Then something moved quickly past her, like the wind, and Laurie's voice cried, "Bring a rail! Quick! Quick!" She never knew how she did it, but for the next few minutes she worked breathlessly. She did as Laurie told her. He lay flat on the ice and held Amy up by his arm. Jo brought an iron rail from the side of the river, and together they managed to get Amy out. She was afraid but not really hurt. They took Amy home, very wet, cold, and crying, but after an exciting time, she fell asleep in front of the hot fire. Jo didn't speak, but ran about trying to help. She looked very white and her hands had cuts from the iron rail and the ice. Later, when Amy was comfortably asleep in her bed, Mrs. Mart sat by Amy's bed and called Jo to her, and she began to tie up Jo's hurt hands. "Are you sure she is safe, Mother?" Jo asked. She looked at Amy's golden head. That little head was nearly carried away forever under the ice. "She's quite safe, dear. She's not hurt," answered her mother. "She won't even get a cold, I think. You covered her up and got her home so quickly." "Laurie did it all. I only let her go, Mother. If she died, it would be because of me." And Jo dropped down beside the bed, crying. "It's my anger. I try to stop it. Sometimes I think I have stopped it. Then it breaks out again, worse than before. Oh, Mother, what shall I do?" said poor Jo. "Ask God to help you and never get tired of trying," said Mrs. March. She kissed Jo's wet face gently. "I have to fight against my anger too." "You, Mother? You're never angry," she said Jo in surprise. "Oh yes, I am, but I hide it and keep quiet." Jo held her mother close. Amy moved in her asleep. "I let the sun go down on my anger, and today, without Laurie, we might have lost Amy. How could I be so bad?" said Jo. She bent over her sister and gently touched her hair. Amy, half asleep, opened her eyes, held out her arms to Jo and smiled, and Jo put her arms round her.